Good luck. Just wait for the last people to join us. Welcome, translator. Okay, still a few more to join us, but we will make the introductions and get into it as quickly as possible. Very, very big panel here for the player representation in women's football. The moderator here, Ed Bowers, who is an experienced podcaster and creator of www.education2sports.com, helping people identify their strengths from their education and personal skill sets so they can discover a career in the sports industry with confidence. The moderator of the player representation in women's football, Ed Bowers.
Thank you very much, everybody. Before I start, as I've been nicely introduced, I'm a podcaster, and I can proudly say this is probably going to be my biggest ever podcast panelist, and really, player representation is something I find really interesting from a career development point of view and an educational standpoint as well. But today is all about helping young athletes pursue a career as a professional footballer. So instead of, with regards to the introductions, I would like my panel to introduce themselves, what they do, what they specialize in. And like my goal today with like how we're doing it is a discussion. Because of the large, fantastic special guests, there are going to be two discussions with regards to how we can support professional footballers on the pitch and how can we like support these professional players off the pitch. And with regards to player representation, there is going to be a merge of content that relates to both discussions, but I think we should treat it as a career journey than just them being an elite athlete and that's it. So to start off, Aglaios, could you explain your background? I know you are doing this fantastic event, but from this panel discussion, what do you want to see out of it? And then could you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, and let me thank you again, the whole audience, be here today. My name is Agisilaos Toumazatos. I'm the founder and CEO of IBF, and along with my partner, Mr. Marios Christos Fandos, we're organizing this special event. So let me thank you again, all of you. Actually, I was GM at Panathinaikos, a really big club for 5 years, and before I was at Deloitte for many years, where I had the opportunity to perform various projects in football industry, either in Greece or outside. I had the opportunity to handle a lot of difficult situations all these years, and maybe this is the reason that I could understand how useful and how high priority, what is a high priority, the women's football. So this is my background. I will have the opportunity to be involved later.
Fantastic. Lindy, could you just introduce yourself to this brilliant audience, please?
Yeah, my name's Lindy Nguenya, and I'd just like to say thank you to Agisilaos and Marios for putting on a fantastic event. So I am founder and managing director of a players agency, CC Sports Management. My agency partner is at the back there, Nicole, as well. We work with players, we work with high-level elite players, and the focus of the agency very much from the inception, back in 2013, was to work in underserved areas of football. So women's football is one of the central pillars that we work with, and in the 6 years that the agency's been running, we've kind of gained a great understanding of the unique kind of challenges and some of the unique benefits of working in this part of football. Obviously, that's something we can touch on more in the discussion, but I think one of the big differences between women and men's football is very much the area around kind of dual careers. At the end of the day, you know, even your top women's player is probably not going to earn enough money to be able to just sit on the beach for the rest of their life when they retire. So, you know, as an agent, it's not just about the contract negotiation, the bish and the bosh. You really have to be really nailed on about things like career development.
Fantastic. Penny, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everybody. I'm Penny Konitsiotti. I'm a sports lawyer. Thank you, Agisilaos and Marios, for the event and the invitation. I'm a sports lawyer based in Athens, but I'm working in this area abroad mainly due to transfers of football players, men mainly. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance, 15 years now, involved in this business, to do transfers and contracts for women in football. I used to be a sports lawyer, an in-house sports lawyer of a great club in Greece, AEK Athens. This is how I started working as a sports lawyer. And then I set up my own office since 2012. Since then, I'm mainly involved in transfers, player contracts, litigation, and all related legal issues in sports, and mainly in football for men, unfortunately. Only men.
Fantastic. Jasmina, could you explain who you are, please?
My name is Jasmina Čović. I'm the founder and owner of the Women's Football Agency, together with my partner Brian Eilert, who is sitting over there. Together we have built in the past 5 years one of Europe's biggest women's football agency. We are managing the careers and the careers off the field also sometimes from Nadine Angara and Simone Lauder, for example. And yes, we want to improve the assistance in the women's football agency and support the players to become better as women and to become self-confident women.
Fantastic. Now, we've had Maggie in the first panel session, but regards to this session, could you explain to the audience what you're currently doing relating to this topic?
Yeah, exactly. So I won't spend on the introduction, but I'm here in this panel because at the moment I'm heading the ADECO Group athlete programs, and that's in partnership with the International Olympic Committee and International Paralympic Committees. But in our strategy, we are also looking into supporting other underserved athlete population, and of course, very close to my heart, as you heard this morning, women's football is something that matters to me. And I believe, and I'm so glad that ADECO also believe, that there is a great opportunity to support women's football and women's footballers. So that's why I'm part of this panel today. Thank you.
Very excited myself. Janice, could you explain who you are? But we've got Sandra being the translator, just to help things out.
Can you hear me? I will do that first in English. So, yes, my name is Janice Vias. I'm an ex-football player. I'm based in Zurich, so I grew up there, and I played first professional football in Switzerland. Then I moved to Greece, playing for Panionios and Apollon Athens in the early 90s. And then I decided to break up with my professional football career at a very early stage. This was because of some experience which I made when I was very young. So I knew how important it is to have really an experienced person, to have some like a mentor or an advisor in the career, and this was my motivation to start also being active in the football business as a football manager. And I'm involved now over 10 years in this area.
Fantastic. So here are the special guests, so I can't wait to... Oh, I'll just pause this. We've got a video here with regards to Yael, with regards to... She can't make it, but she's done a video for this conference. So hopefully get some sound. Yep. I'll do it again. Hold on. See if they're ready.
Greetings, Athens Women's Football Summit. My name is Yael Averbush-West. I'm the Executive Director of the NWSL Players Association in the U.S., and we are really proud to be a part of this event, even if it's remotely. I think there are three main things when I think about the work that we've done with the Players Association in the U.S. that can apply to the women's game globally. And first is to give the players a collective voice. Up until now, if players are struggling or if there are things going on in various leagues, it's really been about individuals speaking up. And the onus should never be on the individual to have to make a personal statement. We need organizations like players' associations, players' unions, to be able to speak on behalf of the players and express that collective voice. Second is working with the powers that be. So in our case, it's the NWSL League, but working with the governing bodies of football worldwide to improve and professionalize the playing experience. So that can be a wide range of things, from improving stadium locker rooms all the way to eliminating abuse and some of the horrible things that are happening in women's football worldwide at the moment. So on that broad spectrum, each place is dealing with their own type of battles, but it's so important that there's an organization that's going to deal directly with the powers that be to speak on behalf of the players and make sure that the players are looked after, taken care of, and that their experience is continuing to be more and more professionalized over time. Obviously, that takes time and it will take patience. But the most important thing that I think we can all do for women's football globally is to meet the players where they are. And this is the third pillar of what we do at our NWSL Players Association. We work directly with the players to understand the realities of their experience. What are they doing on a daily basis? How often are they having to pick up and move? What type of financial constraints and stresses are they facing? How do they deal with their families? Some of our women are raising children while playing. And these are the realities that are so important for us as a group to understand about the women's professional experience right now in the game of football. So we meet our players where they are, and we try to work parallel to the governing bodies and organizations to offer support, whether it's continued professional development off the field, opportunities to secure second sources of income, supporting the players in whatever it is they need and they want to continue to develop and make sure they're making the most of this time while they're playing off the field to ensure that they can play for as long as they want and not have to step away from this sport they love simply because they're not making enough money or not inspired to keep learning and growing. So again, as the NWSL Players Association, we're honored to be a part of the Athens Women's Football Summit, and I think these conversations are so important that we're all having. So we're in full support of what you all are doing, and please know that you can count on us as a resource and to support your missions. Greetings.
What a great video. Linda, I'm going to start with you. What resonated you the most with that video? What comes out the most, which you want to see moving forward?
Yeah, I think as was mentioned in the video, she was talking about, again, the aspect of helping players to maximise their careers, to seek other opportunities, as well to supplement their playing career. And I come back to this again. We've got this idea of, even the top level professional women's players are thankfully now getting a good salary, but there's so many opportunities and increasing population of opportunities out there for these players. And really largely my role as a player rep, as an agent, is to seek out those opportunities and really, really kind of bring those to the table for the player, and as well to be able to help the player. So it's not a, how can I say, it's not like the Svengali role that people kind of characterise agents as, where you're basically telling the player what to do and where to go. It's a case of really understanding what the player's needs are, what the player's motivations and their passions are, and then being able to sit down in a collaborative way and discuss and plan what sort of career path that they might want to take whilst they're playing football, with a view to obviously maybe working in a dual career within the game, or also maybe in other areas of business. So for me, it's the dual career aspect's very important for me, and going back to in terms of the support on the pitch for the players, the key thing is making sure that you understand your player and you put them in an environment where they're going to flourish, and also where they have the ability to reach their potential. So things like, the medical side of it, insurance, ensuring that the structure of the club is one where they can really excel. That is, again, an ongoing job that as an agent you should be curious about. You should be understanding the clubs that you're putting your players into, and you should always be adapting and learning about maybe new clubs that might be coming into that sphere that could also be good environments for your players.
Janice, just really quickly, because you've been a player, I'll come back to you, Penny, really shortly. Because you've been a player, relating to that video, could you just provide a snapshot of your career where you wish you had a bit more support when you were younger, like 18-year-old, you mentioned to me?
Okay, I will do that in German now.
Cool.
Ich glaube, dass es gibt verschiedene Phasen von einem Spieler, die für seine Entwicklung sehr wichtig sind. Vielleicht als
there are different phases of a player's life as a player, which are very important for his or her personal development.
Meiner Meinung nach ist die Phase vom sehr talentierten Jugendspieler, 17, 18 Jahre, der jetzt irgendwo nahe bei der ersten Mannschaft ist, wo die ersten Schritte im Profitum macht, die entscheidende Phase.
So the most important phase, in Janice's opinion, is when the players are very young and when they're in the beginning, when they're very close to the team that are playing. And this is, I guess, where the most impact can be made.
Genau, und ich glaube, dass Lindy hat es vorher erwähnt, eben all das optimale Umfeld, das gibt es teilweise nicht.
As mentioned before, there is no perfect environment for that.
So, also gibt es dafür also aus meiner Sicht eine sehr wichtige Rolle, die der Berater einnehmen muss, und die ist eigentlich auf den Spieler wirklich einzugehen und zu schauen, okay, er muss die richtigen Entscheidungen treffen.
So there is the importance of the player agent, which takes a really important role in order to consult him and to make the right decision.
Weil heutzutage, ja, da ist das Transfergeschäft sehr aktiv und die Berater sind sehr aktiv.
Today, all the player transitions and the agents market, it's very active.
Und deshalb kann es sehr schnell dazu kommen, dass irgendwo Spieler vielleicht eben ins falsche Umfeld wechseln oder irgendwo vielleicht gibt es noch nicht das richtige Umfeld und da muss der Berater einspringen und vielleicht unterstützen. Und da, wo es einen Gap gibt, muss er vielleicht diese Rolle übernehmen und eben Fehler vermeiden, die für die Zukunft sehr wichtig sind. Also das war meine spezielle Erfahrung, wo ich dann auch diverse wirklich Erfolgsstories hatte mit Spielern.
So in his personal experience, where he had also success stories with players, it was very clear that it's a very important role and responsibility of the agent to make sure that you don't end up in a wrong environment or in a difficult environment, maybe even with a wrong club. So that's
Oder halt auch mit dem falschen Berater zusammenzuarbeiten.
Or with the wrong agent.
Very important. Penny, would you like to
just
integrate?
a quick comment apart from the agent that is really crucial to aid the player. In many countries, there are not unions, players' unions, regarding women footballers. For men footballers, there are around the world local unions, player unions, to protect and support them with their rights and all the alternative options that they have regarding contracts, etc. For women, it's not the same. For example, in Greece, even though there are 84 unions, clubs operating, there are many football women taking place. The 40 are the more active. So there is no players' union. Even though I was approached by women to set up a union with relative legal issues, it didn't proceed. This is a main issue, to get real protection, legal support, and not only in this matter.
Jasmine, I'd love to get your input now, if that's cool with you. Like, where do you want to see change now with regards to women agents maybe getting involved with regards to this process?
Well, I think, first of all, you would need to have a licensing again for players' agents, because today everyone can become an agent and do whatever he or she wants. And that's a major problem, because there are people in this business who shouldn't be there, who are also not good for the players, or who have other interests. Then also there have to be from the federation different meetings, or once in a year a meeting for agents to have a talk to them and to see where are the problems, where are the obstacles with the clubs, with the players, how can we improve on that. And yeah, that would be the first thing to do.
Absolutely. May, I see you writing some notes. Would you like to contribute to anything? Just want to see you've been busy, so I want those ideas out there.
No, I think you see me writing notes is such a great source of, learning, and this is an area that we can never learn enough. I think when we look at the whole, what we have to do for the players, for the athletes in general, I do believe very strongly that there is so much work to be done, in particular for women footballers. And the first thing is to look holistically at the pathway. From the moment a girl starts to play football all the way to becoming a professional athlete or going to the World Cup and representing their team, every step of the way, they need to have the right conditions. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges and one of the key essence of this summit at the end of the day is really what can be done more and better for the women footballers. And I think this panel is so relevant because of that, because we need to look at this in a more holistic way. So it's really starting from a young girl all the way to becoming a professional athlete. And when I hear all the panelists speaking, it brings back to my memory one thing that resonates to me really strongly was Abby Wambach's speech last year in 2018 after her retirement. She said, professionals call it transition. I call it terrifying. And this is one of the top athletes in the world. And you would say she walks out of the game with everything guaranteed. She's saying it's been terrifying for her to transition from being a professional footballer and a top athlete to the world of work. And so I think there is where we need to accompany more the athletes and the players. And really starting on one of the biggest challenges that women footballers have is that they really have to have multiple jobs, not just 2 jobs, which is one to be in the national team or playing for the club, but also multiple jobs so that they could leave. And one of those jobs is actually going unpaid, which is being a footballer. And I think that those are the key topics that we need to address. If we want the women's game to advance, if we want women's sports to advance overall, is really about that particular part. Is how can we get the athletes to actually do their job in the right conditions with the proper salaries, and then help the women footballers and the women's game advance in that way. So I think that is a big responsibility, and I would say from the governance perspective, we need to really look into that, the governance of the game, and how can we help women footballers to have better playing conditions, better salaries. Some of them don't even have a contract. The majority of them actually don't have a contract. So those are the things that we really need to put on the spot, and that will change the game. And to me, I want to say this before, probably the panel is so big, but one thing that really strikes me today is the conversation about equal pay. In some countries like USA, we shouldn't be talking about equal pay. We should be talking about pay more the women's national team if they're bringing more money. Yeah. So that's one aspect. The other thing is that if women's national teams and men's national teams are doing the same job, by default, they're employees of the same organization, and at least the basic salary should be equal. Afterwards, we're talking about sponsorships, we're talking about other ways of earning income that may be different because of the different deals, but basic salaries, I think it would be a starting point, fair, for then the girls to say, I will have a way to live my life if I am a footballer. So those are the key aspects I wanted to bring in from my side.
And also they can just focus on playing the game at hand, then all the other intrinsic things of other jobs, family, just from a club perspective.
Before I take the speech, should go over there.
You want me to move? No worries, we'll do. No worries.
We're live.
It's okay, we'll go here. Agilios, with regards to a club perspective, the one thing that just shouts out more is a support system where everybody's on the same page, from the player, the agent, the club. I know we are in a result business, let's be honest. Football is a result business, but if this was sorted out like a family perspective of everybody on the same page, surely that should make things go further. Like, I've had the privilege, when I literally landed on Sunday, I went to a game. There was like a crowd of, Jim Cooley said 150, and the pitch was, I don't think it was playable. And if that's a club, how can we elevate that club with regards to the agents being involved, the family being involved? And I just want you to see it from this perspective, because agents have a hard job of how they're branded, as we've sort of discussed very briefly. But if the club are involved, as that sort of family effect, where do you want to see that integrated in?
Thank you. And actually, considering what Maggie and the other ladies and John already told, it's a matter of equality. It's a matter of equality in our life. And then it's a matter of equality in playing football or in doing any other kind of job. And this is the message, the message of Athens Women's Football Summit, to support this direction, this fight in this direction, because the budgets, the infrastructures, the organizations, the admin, the funds, the history are after the life. The life is first priority. So what we're talking is how we can improve the conditions for the new players, in particular the girls, from the beginning, from the school, from the family, to educate the parents, how they could transfer, what does it mean, and then gradually to be involved either in a professional level, either in amateur level, become parts of medium, bigger, or very big clubs. And then the lawyers and the agents should be very carefully how to treat the life of the new girls and what they have to do in their life. In my experience, in a really great club, which is Panathinaikos, and of course we'll have the opportunity with, among others, there are a lot of executives in the national level in the football industry. What is a club? Maybe a club is its history, the fans of the club, the admin guys and girls, the shareholders, and the players. Without fans, we cannot play football. Without players, we cannot play football. Okay. All the others is a matter of how to manage better and better and better. But at the beginning, this is a story. And this story is at the very beginning. So, as you told before, we have the experience last Sunday to watch with Marios and Jim Cooley a very really good game here in Glyfada between Odysseas Glyfadas and PAOK. And the PAOK was an amazing team. Odysseas Glyfadas was more amazing in my eyes because they were fighting with having nothing. Just the girls, just their parents, just some friends. Of course, PAOK is a big club and lead all this progress. And at Romitos, where I have seen already Katya and the other clubs, Asteras is behind of me or somewhere, and Aris and Aek will be tomorrow with us. And the other clubs are looking and are monitoring very carefully how they could invest, how they promote what actually the life, the meaning of the life. So to provide infrastructure, to perform really good budget plannings, to see how it would happen in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, how the level of under 8, under 12, under 16 will be upgraded. We have strength bridges in order to upgrade, in order to move from level to level, the girls in particular and the boys, in a more sustainable way we can, because they're kids, they are growing, living with families, they have problems, they have financial issues, maybe in the family, we have personal issues, as we have all of us in our life. So the women's football has a great message of equality, of diversity, of supporting, and it's our responsibility as let's say, we are executives somehow, it's our responsibility to consider all this experience and to do our best to protect and to deploy as much as possible, as better as we can, all these conditions, so to have safety, to have prospects, to pass a positive message, and to support from the material infrastructure, from stadium infrastructure, from mentoring. We have with us James Galanis, who is a legend in mentoring globally. Maggie and the other ladies from the morning have already put on the table very, very serious issues. So should be very careful, should understand that it's a serious business, it's a serious matter, it's a matter of life.
Would anybody on the panel want to contribute from a club perspective?
Just a
Penny?
quick comment as
Yeah,
well.
go.
As he mentioned, I will use a phrase of Aristotle Onassis, he's globally known. Be serious in your business and crazy in your life. This is a motto I think we should use to all markets and businesses. So.
Exactly.
To any agents out there, do you want to contribute from a club perspective, just from an educational standpoint?
Vielleicht noch kurz zum Frauenfußball im Generellen und den Agenturen, die sich in diesem Markt bewegen. Ein paar Inputs von meiner Seite.
Janice would like to add some inputs on the general football market for women and the agents that are out there.
Also ich finde es super, dass wir heute auch Vertreter haben, die bereits in diesem Geschäft, das jetzt noch nicht so lukrativ ist, tätig sind.
He really appreciates to meet also people today that are already in the business, although the business is maybe not as worthy as it would be on the men's side.
Ich habe letzte Woche mit einem sehr großen Agenten noch gesprochen und ihm erzählt, dass ich an diesem Event sein werde, und er hat gemeint, Janice, was machst du da? Das ist uninteressant.
So he just met last week a very famous agent, and he told him that he's gonna go to Greece and attend the Athens Women's Football Summit. And the agent said, "What are you gonna do that? That's boring."
So die meisten, sage ich jetzt, Agenturen, es gibt schon ein paar, die das verstanden haben, dass da ein Business entsteht, weil das ist wirklich ein rasant wachsender Markt, und man sieht auch anhand von den Transfers, dass die sich verdoppeln, und irgendwo ist der Trend klar sichtbar. Also gibt es eine Professionalisierung, aber noch sieht man noch keinen Fokus von den Agenturen, und deshalb finde ich es toll. Das ist jetzt sicher auch eine Opportunity für eben neue Leute in dieses Geschäft zu kommen. Und wenn ich jetzt auch Mary heutige Info nehme, dass es zu wenig, sage ich jetzt, Frauen in diesem Geschäft gibt, das ist sicherlich auch sehr wichtig, dass hier in diesem Bereich weitere Frauen ins Geschäft einsteigen.
So although there are agencies that figured out that this is an upcoming topic and it's a business that is growing really, really fast, still the majority of agencies, they don't focus on women's football. And he really thinks that it's very important that not only agencies focus then more on the business, but that the business also gets more women to work on those cases.
Also mein Feedback, meine Antwort zu diesem Berater war, ich habe ihm gesagt, ich würde, wenn ich dich wäre, dieses Business priorisieren und vielleicht sogar eine eigene dedicated Abteilung für dieses Team dann auch aufstellen.
So his answer to the agent that told him it's boring was that his recommendation to him is to focus actually on that business. His advice would be to invest in that because it's going to be big very, very soon.
Here's an open question. How can we improve that right now with regards to this event?
I think different. This is a multi-stakeholder approach, and everyone that could invest in the women's game should see the business case. Is what I talked earlier this morning. The product has been in the back of the shelf too long, and then suddenly, every 4 years the Women's World Cup comes in, and everyone is like, "Wow, this is fantastic." But it has to be more of it, and it has to be more showcased. And again, it's part of the multi-stakeholders, so the governing bodies actually bringing more competition, showcasing more the women's game, more domestic development. But at the same time, I think to come back to the topic number 2 in the discussion is, what is the future for the women footballers post-career? And I think the more studies said, the more the athletes actually have their future framed, the better they will perform. And I think for all of us that are in the game is one of the things that we should invest in. For example, coming from the Adecco Group, which is one of the biggest companies in the world, we see a great opportunity from the business perspective to be investing in the women's game, to support women's footballers. And I think that's the case that needs to be done for other companies and other sponsors so that we can advance the sport. And we have to really make that movement stronger. So it's not only the development. I think we've moved now already from women's football is CSR or grassroots. It is a professional sport, but actually we need to get out there and expose the value to companies and businesses.
Lindy, I want to get back to what you said right from the start with that career development, because it really relates to discussion 2. Now, let's be honest, we had this already with equal pay, and really that's number 1 priority. When the equal pay is there, then the players are living that lifestyle. I've spoken to a few footballers here, and they sort of let loose their hair. How can we need to focus on that career development for the next 30 years? Like those skill sets. You're an athlete yourself. I've had the privilege of doing an interview with you. Going back, Lindy, like as an agent, how important is it to do like a 4-year plan, depending on the player's development as a player, but then like a 40-year plan of what they do next afterwards in general.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to sort of reel it back a bit and say it's not just what they do after their football career, because as you can understand, a lot of players aren't paid enough to live on currently off their football wage. So actually the big role is you're actually putting together a concurrent careers for them. Yeah, so they're playing football, and whilst they're playing football, they're working in a role, and you're helping them to develop their role, which might, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, then metamorphizes into the job that they will continue to take on when they finish the game. So the key point to emphasize is this is what we do whilst the player is actually playing career. A big thing again to emphasize, a difference I find, because I also work in the men's game as well, big difference between men's and women's football is clearly we all know that men's football is more resourced. And we're not just talking about financially, I'm talking in terms of personnel, in terms of staffing. Yeah? So your average men's club will have what you'd call like a player liaison officer, a player care officer, someone who essentially is tasked with looking after the players on a day-to-day level, whether it be the mundane things like the player doesn't know how to fill out their, open a bank account, for instance. In the women's game, you don't have that resourcing. So again, as an agent, when you're working with the players that you represent, for instance, a club move is a good example, right? You move a player from one club to the other, there's all sorts of factors that you have to consider as well that maybe in a men's club will be taken by the player care officer. You need to look at relocation, you need to look at aspects of that. If the player's got their family, you need to take into consideration what might be the best, best place to put the family. Does the family move with the player immediately, or do you hold things back and the family moves a little bit later? All these sort of considerations, I think, in order to do your job properly, which ultimately is to enable the player to play to the best of their ability and peace of mind, you have to include in your offering to the players. So key thing, again, is player care, and the career development has to be something that starts now, not even a 4-year plan. It's right from the outset with the career.
So does that mean, I'm just trying to get to the point, does that mean doing degrees? Does that mean doing apprenticeships? Could you just elaborate on the career development, if that's cool?
Yeah, I mean, it's very player dependent. But, good examples, you've got a good example of a club, for instance, in England, where they play in the second tier of English football, and what they have as an offering for the player is they're not really going to get a salary, but what they can do is get a university degree in one of the top universities in the country whilst they're playing their football, which is probably equivalent now because student fees have gone up a lot. So it's probably equivalent now of actually earning a good salary. So you have some players who may want that pathway. You have other players, so we've got quite a few players on our books and also coaches who are very interested in media work. So we've helped to put them through courses to work in media, and now as part of our role we source media opportunities, whether it's pundit work on TV, podcasts, so I'll talk to you afterwards, and other bits and pieces. Yeah. So it's everything from apprenticeships, degrees, media work, for the real boffins out there who want to do things like MBAs and degrees. It very much depends on the player, and that's why you have to have that conversation.
I've got Penny quickly. I literally had two eyes come at me, and I'm like,
Penny. I personally disagree with the phrase equal pay, and I will explain why. Do all men footballers receive the same salaries? Do all are paid as Ronaldo or Messi? I don't know, because there are many football men that they don't have also neither the salary, just a few bucks or maybe nothing, zero. And they are gaining for that. So my point of view is not, the regulation of salaries is something we don't need to. We have moderation, regulations about salary caps, this, that. We need to, from my point of view, we need to leave the market alone to function, to promote the market, not to regulate, to promote women's and football men's also market. That's my main view.
Maggie, do you want to... You had your point earlier, so sorry.
No, yeah, but I was more on the other point about the players' transition and how to accompany them. And I was just going to make the point that emphasize that the earlier they start, it's the best way for them, actually. And I think most of the times the fear is that then maybe the performance will go away. And one of the things that we love to do is to really accompany the players as a lifelong employability partner. And that's why we pledged together with Women in Football to start a pilot project in the UK. And for us, it's really important to look at that career transition in a very structured way. So it's also about the dual career aspect, so how to manage it, but also some of the players, and we have to think about the different opportunities that are out there today. So it's not only about gaining a university degree, but the different skills that are demanded by the future of work. So those are the aspects that maybe we can actually help the players sometimes on all the upskilling and reskilling that they need to have as they leave football. And one aspect that is really important that we see quite often in athletes and more in women's footballers is the entrepreneurial side. And I think this is a fantastic way to help players actually to point out that it's not only about having another employer in the future, but actually becoming own entrepreneurs, creating their own companies. And one other aspect that is crucial and we don't see often is a lot of the women's footballers walk away from football after the playing careers. How can we get them into the football system and into football to lead football as coaches, administrators, but also as executive, as president of association? So I think as we're talking here about player representation, let's not forget that we need to keep them in the game. We need to keep athletes in sports, and they are walking away. If you look across the world, Fortune 500 companies, 90% of women at high levels have been athletes, but they are not in sports. So one thing that I want to call out here in this panel and all the people working with players is that they need to stay in football as well as they leave. If they want, they should see a career beyond football on the field, off the field.
Jasmine, you've been really quiet, and I want to just get your viewpoint as well with regards to...
my thoughts.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I think it's not that bad going out of the football business to gain new experiences, to meet new people. It's very important to see there's a world outside of football where I can learn something, see other people, learn some other soft skills maybe too, and then maybe come back. Because I experience every day in my work, we are missing professional managers. We are missing professional marketing managers also, and that's an important factor to support the players, how we do it. For example, almost all of our players are doing something aside, either in football, for example, Simone Lauder is doing an internship at FC Bayern Munich, or other players working in companies and business companies in marketing to gain experience for their career after football.
Out of interest, it's an open question. Do you think there should be more businesses integrating with clubs to do workshops, educating these players to know what is out there? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. I would like before to emphasize something very carefully. We should not forget that we are living in a planet where we have a lot of wars, really pure countries. There are girls and boys. They don't have a home. They don't have the ability to get education. We have huge refugee flows. Okay, so the off the pitch is the main pitch. Yeah. Actually, and there's the only pitch, because the sponsoring and replying to you, the sponsoring. The commercialization, the digitalization is something that works. Of course, needs a lot of improvement per case, but it works. The main arena, which is the off-the-pitch area, and in Greece, for example, where we are facing financial crisis the last 5 years, we have also around of us countries that they are facing financial crisis, living crisis, but the girls, the boys and the girls, are happy to play football. Okay, and this is the message that UEFA and FIFA and the other organization, Gender Equality Organization, or tomorrow we'll have a special moment with Katerina Salta to share with us what does it mean, the off the pitch. So as a conclusion, to point of our side let's say, we are executives, we should be careful to organize very well the plans, to be in connection with the big firms, to get investments, to get investors, commercial big firms into the pitch, but behind of this effort to share with them the same message. And the message is to improve the life across the planet. That's why the women's football is the biggest movement that now is recognizing on a daily basis more and more, and that's why the impact of the recent World Cup in France, and Rupinder shared with us some hours ago the impact, is something we should consider very carefully. So the message is integration, live community. That's why Athens Women's Football Summit may play a critical role to coordinate this communication in order to synchronize all parameters by trying to achieve the same targets.
Would anybody in the panel want to add to this? Because if not, I assume there'll be some great questions, and I'd love the audience to get involved. So if you've got any questions, please fire away. No questions? Right, honestly, I think that was a great ending, personally, with regards to the bigger picture. The off the pitch is our pitch. And thank you so much, everybody, and thank you to this amazing panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very, very entertaining. Good translation as well. As they finish up, Marius, a very, very short break. We will aim for 10 minutes from now. So if we can be seated again in 10 minutes, the next panel will commence. A very exciting panel. Let's try our best for 10 minutes. We'll see you soon.
My name is Brigitte Enrique.
Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? You've been out riding fences for so long now. Oh, you're a hard one, but I know that you got your reasons. These things that are pleasing you can hurt you somehow. Don't you draw the queen of diamonds, boy. She'll beat you if she's able. You know the queen of hearts is always your best bet. Now it seems to me some fine things have been laid upon your table, but you only want the ones that you can't get. Desperado, oh, you ain't getting no younger. Your pain and your hunger, they're driving you home. And freedom, oh, freedom, well, that's just some people talking. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. Don't your feet get cold in the wintertime? The sky won't snow and the sun won't shine. It's hard to tell the nighttime from the day. You're losing all your highs and lows. Ain't it funny how the feeling goes away? Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Come down from your fences. Open the gate. It may be raining, but there's a rainbow above you. You better let somebody love you. Let somebody love you. Better let somebody love you before it's too late.
All right, we are prepared and ready. The panel are in place. If everyone from outside in the foyer could join us, we will get underway in a couple of minutes' time. Thank you.
Please come. Please come inside. We have to begin.
Thank you, everyone. If you could take your seats, we will resume hopefully in a minute's time.
Fresh.
Siamo pronti? Italiano dall'Australia, sì. Okay. Most people are back. Well, welcome back. The second last panel of what has been a very busy yet very exciting day here at the Athens Women's Football Summit. As you can see, I will be the moderator for this panel. This is the Where We've Been and Where We're Going panel, joined by two amazing women who I'll introduce very shortly. You've heard me speak for large parts of today, but just a little bit of background about myself and what I do and why I'm here, which is thanks to my great friend Marios, who I look forward to doing continued work with into the future. And again, compliments from myself on a sensational event. Has been very, very enjoyable and looking forward to day two, of course. But for myself, I am a broadcaster and journalist in football, Australian-born, raised to an Italian family who migrated to Australia a little while back and really built that passion for me in football. My family migrated from Italy to Australia. Actually, true story, they boarded a ship thinking they were going to Austria, but after 1 month ended up in Australia. They had no concept of the language, they had no concept of anything, and football was the one element that kept them together, male and female, men and women combined, and it really paved the way for my generation in Australia to be very embracive of what this sport can do, and I'm very excited from the broadcast side to see what's happening in the women's game. I've been very fortunate to cover World Cups. I'm still yet to tick off the Women's World Cup, which I hope to do in 23, which I'm very hopeful will be in Australia. But I did cover my first World Cup in the men's age 21 with ESPN. And 9 years on, I'm very proud to say I've lived across London, New York, Miami, Milan now, Doha as well, covering this beautiful game. So I'm very passionate, and I'm very thankful to be here amongst all of you today. It's been a wonderful learning experience for me, and I'm very excited with what is to come. But as I said, this is not about me, it's about the two amazing women here with me. And I'll start with Ebru, who incredibly she's obviously tied to football, but her background is in finance. Ebru began her professional career in New York as a financial analyst in corporate finance at Morgan Stanley, working at Citibank and AIG Capital Partners until 2001. This all changed, though, when AIG chose to invest in Galatasaray, a lifelong fan of that club. Ebru immediately worked on the proposal, began a 6-month stint, turned into a new career for this reformed economist, leading up to CEO and board member roles at Galatasaray. In 2010, she was the first woman elected to the executive board of the European Club Association, and later became the first and only female general secretary of the Turkish Football Federation. And amongst many other career highlights, she also served as a consultant at FIFA between 2012 and 17, as well as UEFA between 2015 and 18. A warm welcome for Ebru Koksal. And on my right, Brigitte Enrique, a former international footballer for the French national team. Brigitte now holds the position of vice president within the French Football Federation, an associate physical education teacher and holder of an A license as a football coach. She joined Paris Saint-Germain as manager of the women's team from 2009 until 2011. Since then, Brigitte has been working for the French Football Federation, where she has been in charge of the federal plan for the feminisation of football, was also the vice president of the local organising committee for the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup. Brigitte, a warm welcome to you, and over to you for the opening presentation.
Thank you. Just before, excuse me. Pardon. Before talking about the World Cup, I just want to tell you the player was just before talking about your history, it was mine. When I was a former international player, it was exactly the same in France. It was impossible to find a club who welcome women. And never I can imagine that our country organized the World Cup and that all the stadium will be full packed, such as in 2019. So you have to believe in it, because in a country such as France, if it's possible that there is a place for women's football in France, it's possible all over the world. And just for fun, when I was international players, I was playing against Carolina, and she was the best player in the front of attack of each team of the world, and all the time we lost with France when we have played against her, and it was my idol. She was the best player in attack at that time. And when we were playing against USA in USA, you know, for her, it was the paradise of women's football. It was in 1990, and all the times with the national team, with France, we were not professional, so all the times we lost also, 5-6-0 all the times. And when we played there, all the time we said, it can exist. A country where the women's football is recognized exists. And then all the times when we came back in France, we said maybe sometime in France it could be like this. And for us, it was a dream. So thank you for making us dreaming with the US. And just to conclude for this beginning, the World Cup in Germany was for us the beginning of the development of the women's football in France. And you know why? Because in 2011, we have been elected with a new president. You know, in 2010, in France, it was a big crisis for football because our men national players didn't want to go back the bus for training in Africa, in South of Africa with the World Cup, so it was terrible. So a new reform of our governments in football with one president, one program, and one team. and our president, Noël Le Gret, decided to put women's in his team. It was the first time in our history, and it was the first time that we have a president who was convinced and very involved in the development of the women's football, just because he has 2 daughters and is businessman, and her daughters, 3 daughters, they were working in the top level of the position in their companies. So for him, there is no subject, there is the place for mixity, for the women's and the men's. He said just at the beginning, I want to do something for the women's football in France. I want to make the changing things. And that's great because it was the World Cup in Germany, very well organized by Tatiana, and I want people to applaud Tatiana, because if the World Cup was so high level in France, it's because before all the World Cup organized by FIFA, Tatiana was the manager of this World Cup. And I think it was the first match my president saw at that World Cup, and it was the first time that our French national team passed the quarterfinal. And the media discovered that in France, women could play football. And it was really the beginning, and in the same time, in 2011, Olympique Lyonnais won for the first time the European Champions League. And I said that because for us in France, just at the right moment, we have the right president, we have clubs in the top of European Champions League, the media, the World Cup, and I think that because of these lights were green, I don't know if in French it's the expression, all the lights were green, so it was the right moment for us. So we have a first plan just before bidding for the World Cup, and then the World Cup for us, for the organization, it was the best thing could happen to us, and I show you.
Hello and welcome. The period of waiting is over.
This is where the journey begins.
Sit back and enjoy the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup.
So for the bidding for the World Cup, just before we have a plan which is very important, is that we have to increase the number of female in each family of the women's football. Why? Referees, coaches, volunteers, officials, because in our landscape of football in France, if you are not present physically, people don't think that women are playing. So for the first mandate, we were 15 players in 2011, and in 2016 we were 100,000. And it was the first objective. And the first program was on the school. Of course, the school is very important to show to everybody that players can be women and can be men. And it was great because of our national team, the little girls can dreaming becoming Wendy Renard, Gaëtan Tinet, Laura Georges, and so on. And then our president decided in 2014 to bid for the World Cup. It was not me. He decided alone to say to the board that we are going to bidding. It was just a dream to have your president who said to nobody that he wants to bid for the World Cup for women in France. Incredible. And so we bid for the World Cup, and it was a big responsibility because just before organizing this World Cup, we had the Euro 2016 for the men and the World Cup for the men in 1998. And it was a big success for these two competitions, and for the first time it was for women. So the one point very important is the vision, the excellence for the organization, and then I can tell you about the media success, the impact and legacy, and conclude by financial success. For me, this is the most important because during 4 years, 2014 until 2018, this vision, we share it with all the stakeholders on the country. Not only the families from football, the clubs and so on, the leagues and the departments, the host cities, and we met everybody all the times with this vision. And as you can see, it must be a fest everywhere in our country. And it's very simple, but if I tell you that 1 year before the World Cup, nobody in France knew that there was the World Cup, it's a reality. So you have, to put this and to say to every people everywhere, with Laura Georges, because she was ambassador with me, that the World Cup will be in 2019. So it was incredible the work and the job we have to made, but it was fantastic because at the end people were more happy than me. Because that was benefit for them, for their cities, for their clubs, for the football, for our country, and more than that, for all the countries. So fill out the venues. It was a big challenge because for our national team, since 2011, we have the stadium full pack because our federation invests in the organization of the match of our national team. So it was quite possible for our national team, but for the others, it was a big, big job. And I think that we succeed in this point of the vision because we decided to have a ticketing strategy of accessibility for all the people, for families. And so the price of the tickets was an average of 12 euros. So it was possible for a big family to come to the stadium. And FIFA accept to have package sales. So for 1 match, 2 match and 3 match in the same cities, you must, at the beginning of the sailing, yes, excuse me. And the stadium, you have to, the stadium, the George was very important, 20,000 spectators until 16. As I told you, the mobilization was very, very important, and this World Cup for us in France was more than a sport event, than football event. We said to all the host cities that they have to have benefits about their policy, and with the, for example, for Valenciennes is in the north where Netherlands played with lot of people, red people, but not red, but orange people everywhere. It was just incredible to see that. And the mayor of these cities, when he bid to organize the World Cup, he said, "I want just one thing: to give again the smile to my inhabitants." And I think that it was the best present we can receive from a mayor. And at the end of the World Cup, we go to Valenciennes just in September. It was a so incredible fest. You can imagine it was more than it's so much emotion to see that a World Cup for women can make this for the inhabitants and for our country. So you remember the quarterfinal where we lost against US, but the stadium was full. It was just incredible. So I am not going to comment on the slide, but I think that the pitches were excellent. Maybe you saw that for the Euro 2016 we have difficulties with grass, the grass, and for this World Cup, the standards for FIFA with our LOC, it was really very high quality. And we respect the budget because with our president, the first objective is not to lose money with the World Cup. So just key numbers. As you can see, we have a lot of ambassadors of governments who are very present very often on the match. 45,000 accreditation, and that's funny too for the revenue for restaurant, because for example in Valenciennes in 1 week they spend all the beer that they have choose for all the months. Just in 1 week every beer was sent for the first week, and then many training sessions. The media success and popular passion, it was just incredible. For example, L'Équipe, it's the best well-known newspaper in France. Every day you have something on the World Cup, and on the one page, it was just incredible to saw how media were involved. Before it was not the case. I'll let you see the numbers. And I think this is the best success of the World Cup, because for the TV spectators, it was all over the world that we bet the records of the TV spectators. And we know that England, we showed this morning, it was incredible to know that for the semi-final, you have more spectators, TV spectators, than for the final of the men of the Champions League. It was just incredible. It was 7 million for Italy and 30 million for Brazil. It was just incredible. And the final number is 1 billion of TV spectators. So the impact and legacy in 2011, I told you we were 50,000 players. Just before the World Cup, we were 120,000 players. And it was the landscape of the women's football. As you can see, every family of football is very important in our program. The referees, the coaches, the educators, the women's team. And that was, with the vision, the objective we had before the World Cup. Just now, when I'm talking to you, we are just about 200,000 registered players. So we have a big increase, and the men, unluckily, they are not increased. And so it's so incredible that in France, it's the registered players, female, that permit to have the balance for the registered player. 2 million players we have in our federation. Of course, we have a social impact for the World Cup, and we have a program with the government with 15 engagement, such as environmental impact, and for the economic impact, we have not the last result of these studies that we have made, but I think at the end of the year we can have everything. Of course, we have I don't know, it's studies. We must evaluate the impact of mixity in all the host cities with the sport by women, and where the women are in host cities, in the governments, in school, in university, and so on. And this is very interesting to see that after the World Cup, you can see that a lot of people now are very enjoy a lot the women's football with our national team, and it wants more and wants to see more matches with the football. And just about that, for our top league, just now, we have all the matches who are with our broadcaster. We have 2 broadcasters, and all the matches are on TV on Saturday and on Sunday. And you can see that the point of view of all the people from the organization of the World Cup, it was a big, big success. And I think that because all the fans from foreign countries came to the World Cup, it was the first time that we have so much fans from each teams who were festing the World Cup in France. And to conclude, I'm just speaking about the financial success, so we can talk about after with you. With our federation and with FIFA, we have an objective of 15 million of revenue for ticketing. And as you can see, we have 25 million of ticketing. So it was more than we can expected. And the government participated with 6 million of for the clubs, for the participation. Sponsoring, it was very easy to find 6, because it was allowed for us to have 5 national sponsors for the World Cup, and each of them give us 1 million, so it was very easy to find them. And just at the end of the World Cup, we have a naming for the top league called Arkema, and Arkema, the sponsor, decided after the World Cup to invest in our clubs, and they give 80,000 euros per club. And it's the naming of the deal. And this is the for each cities the number of tickets selling, and I think that the best result of this World Cup is that all the country, all the teams at the end of the World Cup said to us, just at the end of the final, that they said thank you, because all the countries and all the teams won this World Cup, because it never be the same after 2019. And I think it's right, because it was just incredible, the success of this World Cup, but I think just the beginning of a new area. Now we have a lot of things to do again, but I'm sure that it will never be the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Brigitte. Perfect timing. Very, very well done. Ebru, over to you. Some of your stories and experiences and steps you've taken to help women thrive in football.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. In every epidemic outbreak, there's a patient zero. I suspect you made a dream come true. And Efkaristopoli, on behalf of all of us who are here, hosted by you, attending this wonderful conference. You told my background, and I'll now tell the behind-the-scenes juicy gossip part of it. It looks all good on paper, but it wasn't always like that, actually. Yes, I was an investment banker originally in my career for 10 years, and I joined a private equity fund of AIG back in Turkey. And the first day on the job, they sent me to a meeting with Galatasaray. The president of the club at the time was my former M&A client. And one thing led to the other. 9 months later, the partnership agreement was signed with Galatasaray. The fund bought 20% shares in the club. And interesting enough, on the same day, my daughter was born, my second child. My kids are 1.5 years apart. 3 weeks later, I got called to the office, and I thought my boss was going to just do the keeping up days or whatever they're called. And then he was very cold-blooded. It's this Italian guy, sorry, you know, very unusual Italian guy. And he said to me, Ebru, you have 2 very young children. You know, the fund is very fast-paced and, you know, is too hard for you to keep up now. So I'm terminating your contract. I was like, what? You know, those of you who are mothers will know hormones are going crazy at this point in time. I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to go out and hire a lawyer and sue AIG's pants off. So I come home. I'm really furious. And I get a call from the president of Galatasaray. And Mr. Suran says, are you crazy? You know, this is an interesting industry, really fun. Why don't you come over for 6 months as an interim CFO and see if you like it? If you don't, you can always open your court case. So that's how I set foot in the football industry, slightly as a result of me being adventurous and wanting to try something new and step out of my comfort zone. Then, basically, 6 months later, the president resigned. Another one came in. He said, can you stay another 6 months? And I said, why not? 3 months later, they asked me if I would take over the marketing company. I was like, okay, I've never done marketing in my life, but why not? So anyways, 11 years went by. Every year I was doing something new, different. I even built the Galatasaray Stadium. Imagine me in my sort of Gucci shoes and like Prada bags with a, you know, a hat and in the construction site. But yes, I did all of that, and it was an amazing, wonderful experience. 2010, before any other governing body ever had any woman running for office, I raised my hand and I said, I want to run for board membership at European Club Association. Everyone said, oh, how nice. Here's one of the votes. And I said, I know you did. And I explained why I would be a good candidate. Believers, in our second division, I got the highest votes actually out of everybody, which was amazing. And I had the honor to serve alongside Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and some of the greatest men who are leading European football. And then I had this really interesting offer to become the first female general secretary of the Turkish FA. Very difficult decision, mainly because that year was the year of the match-fixing investigations in Turkey. And to make the long story short, seems like I took a very bad decision, became the general secretary. 4 months, 5 days later, I was out of my dream job. And on top of it, I was accused by the presidents of the rival clubs who were under investigation, really bad social media campaign against me. I started receiving death threats. So I'm sitting at home thinking, hell, what did I do? I was happy at Galatasaray. Why did I take this step? At that point, actually, FIFA, sent me notice saying, we would love if you would work with us as a consultant. And I signed a consultancy agreement, and for 2 years I worked mostly on the men's football development project. So about 15 years I was always on the men's football side. Then 2 wonderful women sitting in this room, Margie and Tatiana, they actually reached out to me. Tatiana asked me to come and speak at the Women's Football Symposium. So there is no such thing as first ever inaugural Women's Football Conference. It has been done before many times, so I know because I spoke at one. But anyway, so she asked me to speak about the marketing opportunities in women's football. Wonderful experience. Then Margie said, let's do the women's football administration courses, and we started brainstorming, and I said, no, we're not going to just teach women about business, because what's really important is to survive in this industry. And in order to survive, you need certain skills, which as women, we don't naturally have, but it doesn't mean that we cannot develop them. So I wrote a module from scratch about leadership and soft skills like networking, project management, decision-making, negotiating, confidence, public speaking. And we embarked on a mission to go around the world. We went to like 50 countries. I did about 25 myself, and we trained a few trainers. It was a great program for 2.5 years. And then these wonderful women left FIFA, and my contract also finished at FIFA. So there were times around these periods where I was really feeling like I was powerless, because I no longer had this big title of CEO of Galatasaray or a consultant for FIFA or something, which usually opens doors. And you always tend to think that you need this big card in order to make change happen. Then 2017, I decided to go after a 25-year-old dream of mine, which was to go to Harvard Business School. I had applied 2 years out of college while I was working at Morgan Stanley. And as I was waiting for the answers, my boyfriend, who was living in Turkey at the time, proposed. I was so in love. I said yes, moved back to Turkey. We got married. Stopped thinking about Harvard. So in 2017, I gathered everybody. I said, I'm going, guys. Can you take care of yourselves? And they were like, okay, go. So at Harvard, the most important thing I realized in 7 weeks was there were CEOs of billion-dollar companies. But making a difference doesn't really require you to have these big titles. You just have to have it as a passion in your heart. And I had joined, actually, Women in Football, which is an NGO in the UK. I'll tell you a little bit about what it is. It was set up in 2007 by sports journalists, football journalists in the UK, who felt very lonely in the commentator box, because a lot of the times when they walked in on the match day, they were asked to, oh, honey, can you bring the coffee or the tea? And they're like, no, we're here to commentate, actually. We're journalists like you. So I joined in 2015, and last year I took over as chair, and we have 3,500 members. And what we are trying to do is, in the previous panels, everybody talked about the player pathway. There is such a pathway for professionals in football as well, and we're trying to help professional women working in and around football, including the players, to have access to the best education and training possible, to have equal opportunities of entry at the entry level, promotion, retention, and also really clear career paths. And we actually want to challenge discrimination and support the women and also showcase their successes. So, and in 2017, again, being an NGO with a very, very small budget, We entered a concourse by a wonderful agency in the UK, Synergy, who decided to donate £25,000 of agency time for an organization that is working in the equality space. We won, and they designed this wonderful campaign for us called What If? And it's a very, very simple campaign which is trying to challenge corporates, ambassadors, members of the public to take action and improve the landscape for every woman working in football. So it's a very simple question, and it's trying to help everyone understand that it is actions rather than words alone that would make the difference. And that what if we realized individually or as part of a corporation that there is something each and one of us, every one of us can do to change the landscape. Because a lot of the times we're just waiting for the big corporations, the big, FIFAs and UEFA's confederations, member associations to solve the problem. No, if we do not take a step ourselves as well, we remain to be part of the problem, but it is actually very simple to be part of the solution. So the campaign basically had 3 levels for organizational commitments, for individual commitments, and some social and shared commitments. We didn't think that it would be such a successful campaign. Even we were surprised at the amount of attention the campaign received. 135,000 tweets with the What If hashtag during even the first month of the campaign, #1 trending topic, and it gave everybody this sense of joy that you can participate to solve a problem. We even got nominated against some really large budget equality and diversity campaigns by BT Sports Awards. We were mentioned in Digital Sports, The Guardian. We were shortlisted for many other awards. And we have received over 200 pledges from 50 organizations and 60 high-profile supporters. Some simple ones. Twitter said, what if we created the first ever women in football emoji? So now if you type hashtag women in football, you get this character in red with the football in her hand, which has been used millions of times until now. UEFA came in saying, what if we increase the budget for women's football by 50%? And on the day of the announcement of their campaign, it received 12.5 million global impressions. The FA was kind enough to come in this summer with an inaugural pledge about giving every girl opportunity to play football at school, and Rupinder spoke about how important it is and what a game-changing pledge it will be, hopefully, when it's delivered over time. FIFPro came in to say, this is such a great movement, it cannot be just contained in the UK, we need to bring it into Europe. Okay, so a very short video.
The football industry still has a diversity issue. Women are underrepresented and underpaid versus men. From pitch to business to broadcast. And then there was Twerkgate.
Est-ce que tu sais twerker?
No. Women in Football, a network of professional women working in and around the football industry to champion women's achievements and challenge discrimination, asked itself, what if everyone understood that talking a good game was not enough? What if we asked the sports industry to publicly commit to actually doing something? What If was born on Twitter. It took off, and it flew. What if Twitter gave women in sport its own emoji? What if Betfair ring-fenced 50% of their cash for clubs grants for women's teams? What if Sky Sports committed to female pundits on Gillette soccer specials? The campaign gathered momentum, galvanised the sports community and spread through social like wildfire, from elite level to grassroots, ultimately achieving an entirely organic social reach of 75 million. What if one small question could spark a revolution and change the landscape of women's sport forever? What if?
So, thank you. I think it's important to gather in these conferences and talk about the problems also talk about hopefully some solutions, because a lot of the times we're here complaining about what's not working. But it's also extremely important not to go back and wait for the next conference several months later. And just try to think of something you can do. And I already, even listening to some of you and your organizations today, I have what if pledge ideas for some of you. So I will come by and speak to each and one of you today and tomorrow. There is no escaping. But I'll tell you one thing that is very dear to my heart. I was one of the first 3 recipients of Harvard Business School's Making a Difference Award last year. And it was because of this campaign, as well as everything that I've done to help other women to enter the industry and survive in the industry. I wouldn't have ever imagined getting an award for that, because I was so business-oriented, and I always thought that I was doing a great job managing one of the biggest brands in the world. But making a difference can be through an organization as small as Women in Football. So it's my call to action. Please think about what you can do for the cause you believe in. And hopefully in February 2020, along with FIFPro, we're going to try to gather all the European pledgers of this campaign in a one-day seminar in Amsterdam. And I would love to see each and every one of you there with your pledges.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you can all agree with me, 2 very inspiring women and 2 very inspiring stories. Just cautious for time, still a little bit to do in the remaining minutes of this panel. But you mentioned FIFPro, Ebru. I was very fortunate to host the FIFA Best Awards recently, the Green Carpet Show in Milano, and FIFPro, for the first time ever off the back of the Women's World Cup, announced their first ever FIFPro World 11 for the women's game. And I can assure you it was the biggest and the longest standing ovation I've ever seen. So it was really beautiful to see the embrace there. Brigitte, you mentioned earlier with regards to, okay, the World Cup now has come, it's gone, it was brilliant, but this is only the start. How do you see women's football leveraging off the success that was the FIFA Women's World Cup?
I think that maybe it's the same in Europe, but I know that in England now you have an increase for everything, and that's fabulous to see the model today you have. After the World Cup in France, we have Arkema for the naming of the top league, but after we saw that the sponsors, they still hesitate. So I think that the responsibility of our federation and our professional league, for the men, because there will be an increase in 2 years for the TV rights for the men, we have to help the clubs to invest in the women's football. In France, all our professional clubs today have a women's team, but it's not enough. If you have Lyon and Paris Saint-Germain, who have 7 million of budget, and then you have Marseille, who have only 800,000, it's not possible to offer the same facilities for the players, and so we have two level different from the club. So I think that if we want to for the next step, it's to help the club to invest and to prove them that maybe in 4 years, in 5 years, they can have benefits, because today the women's football it's cheap compared to the men, and I'm sure that in 10 years. They can have a lot of benefits. So I think it's the most important thing we have to do just now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for those of you who love the financial terms, return on investment, ROI, there's no ROI if there isn't investment. And I hear in many, many different places, yeah, but there is no revenue in women's football, there's no spectators, there's no TV rights. Well, unless you invest, you're not going to get a return. And if you're looking at alternative investments, buying real estate, or investing in this textile manufacturing plant, nothing is going to pay off in year 1. It is going to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in some cases. But I guarantee you that the return will be much higher. And today, globally, about only 5% of the budgets are spent on women's football. So imagine if you took away another 5% from men's football. So it's not 95%, but 90%. It's not going to hurt anybody. But that doubles the budget for women's football. And imagine what can be done in a small time frame. So I'm a big believer in the growth potential of women's football. And honestly, some countries on men's side are never going to be able to close the financial gap. But on women's football side, leave maybe the top 10 aside with more than 100,000 players and higher budgets. But the remaining 170 countries are quite close to each other. And whoever puts a bit more money in there is going to be easily making it to the top 20, top 15.
And for example, to us, TF1 was the broadcaster. It was a clear channel, so every people can see all the matches during the World Cup. And in January, all the board of the channel TF1, they asked us to come. So we were about 10% from the LOC. And I talked to them the same story. I told you about the US and the paradise of women's football, and that 40 years ago it was not possible to play football in France. And they were smiling, they thought that I was nice. And I'm sure that they can't imagine that after the World Cup they made 13 million of benefits. And one TF1 organized is the broadcaster for the men's World Cup in Russia or for the Olympic Games in Rio. They have no benefits because it costs a lot to organize everything with all the people on TV. And with the women's football, it was just incredible to have an average of 20 million TV spectators for all the matches. It was just incredible. And I think that before they have no representation of what could be a World Cup for women's football. And I think that we have to prove with the video, with the game, and it's the responsibility of every people who wants to make the thing change, to show what is the game of women's football today.
Very insightful indeed. Before we wrap up, are there any questions? We do. A comment is fine.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Hello. My name is Katarina Salta. I'm from Greece, a co-founder of STFC, the first refugee and migrant women football team in Greece. Thank you both. Really inspiring what you shared with us. Regarding the World Cup in France, really impressive the numbers. Another thing that I don't know if most of the people are aware over here is the number of actions of side events organized by NGOs and grassroots organizations in Lyon during the World Cup in order to promote gender equality, vulnerable women's rights, etc. Personally, we traveled to Lyon in June to participate in the Festival of Football, organized by a US organization, Equal Playing Field, an attempt to break World Guinness record of the most women playing on a five-a-side pitch. The heat was horrible, but nevertheless, 800 women from all continents, we were there. So as a person from the humanitarian aid, not from the professional football, from sport for development sector, it was impressive how World Women's Cup inspired so many women to raise their voices together in Lyon, in France, for women's rights. That's all. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't understand everything. Just a part.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. We're happy to leave there. Thank you for the comment, and of course, thank you here. Marios will just. Yes, you may, of course.
A little unscripted surprise.
Yes.
Those of you who know me know I like to surprise women. A little story.
We've got nothing but time, Jim.
Okay.
As you know, my name is Jim Cooley. I am named after my mother's uncle, Jimmy Murphy, from New Jersey. 101 years ago, Jimmy Murphy was drafted into the U.S. Army and was told with his 77th Division to go into the Argonne Forest in France. It was the summer of 1918. The Argonne Forest is between Belgium and France, and the Germans, for a year, had hunkered down in this forest and were unbeatable with their machine guns. And the USA said, we've got to put an end to this, and drafted 30,000 young men from New York and New Jersey. And my mother's uncle, he was 18 years old, he was one of them. He, with his battalion, drove into the Argonne Forest and became trapped. They went in, and their flanks were not accompanying them, and they became instantly surrounded by the Germans, and for 3 days were bombarded by the Germans. They are known as the Lost Battalion. You know of the Lost Battalion, yes?
Maybe.
Okay. The Lost Battalion sent a pigeon out after 3 days, a wounded pigeon who was very famous now. There is a monument to this pigeon in the forest. My granduncle Jimmy was killed on October 16th, 1918. His battalion was eventually rescued and did not give up. They continued to battle through the Argonne Forest and compelled the German army to surrender. And on November 11th, they did so. And when they asked the Germans, they, in the debriefing afterwards, the German general said, "Where did you find these guys? They are fearless." And of course, the response was New York. What was interesting on top of all of this is the battalion was named the Liberty Battalion. On their helmets was the emblem of the Statue of Liberty. And my mother's uncle, Jimmy Murphy, was part of that battalion. He is now entombed, he's buried in the cemetery just on the outskirts of France. It's a very famous U.S., the very first cemetery monument off our shores in row 1. Imagine if he hadn't been there. Would we be here today, or would we be speaking a different language? In any event, me representing his descendant, you representing a wonderful country of France. And I'm also known for giving my hat away. I gave my hat to Marinette back in 2003. These are new and they're rare. This is the new 4-star USA hat. I think there's only one in New Jersey, and I got one. I'm going to present this to you, Miss VP, and from me to you across 101 years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for a wonderful World Cup.
Thank you very much, and thank you for.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations to you, yes.
That's all I've got.
No problem at all. I was very close to finishing on time, but we didn't get there in the end. Marios, I would like to welcome to the stage for one final special presentation before the final break and then our final panel. Marios.
You can go.
There's one more smaller there.
Thank you very much for an exceptional presentation here. I don't want to take too much time other than to, of course, once again, thank you all for giving us incredible perspectives and allowing us the opportunity, a small opportunity, to share in your incredible experiences, your great accomplishments, and we commend you both for everything you've done. The reason we're taking a moment to make a special announcement right now is exactly because of the importance of this World Cup that we just experienced, for many of the greatest World Cup we've ever had. And we just would like to take a moment to thank you, Brigitte, for your incredible contribution to the women's game, taking this opportunity of this presentation and having you with us here in Athens. And let me just turn this over to Aisilos.
Just pass the microphone or introduce Nikos. Nikos is our partner in something really initiative. It's an artist. Nikos has made great arts in the sports industry, and it's an honor to us to have Nikos with us. Nikos, the last days, has an idea to create something for Brigitte and from France Football Federation and to the women's football. It's an honor to provide it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you. Can I? Thank you. And you know, when you are talking what you are living with football in Greece, I really hope that you can make the dream that your country organize one day a World Cup here. I hope for you.
Congratulations, Brigitte.
Thank you very much.
Congratulate you.
Thank you.
For everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A very, very special presentation indeed. Another round of applause for Ebru and Brigitte.
All the countries wrong with the World Cup.
Okay, last coffee break. See you in 10, 15, maybe 20, but hopefully 10. See you very soon. Brigitte.
exactly why you were asleep. The moon and I were talking. I asked that she'd always keep you protected. She promised you her light, but you so gracefully carry. You bring your light and shine like morning. And then the wind pulls the clouds across the moon. Your light fills the darkest room. I can see the miracle that keeps us from falling. She promised all the sweetest gifts that only the heavens could bestow. You bring your light and shine like morning. And as you so gracefully give her light, as long as you live, I'll always remember this moment. There is a woman in Somalia scraping for pearls on the roadside. There's a force stronger than nature, keeps her will alive. This is how she's dying. She's dying to survive. Don't know what she's made of. I would like to be that brave. She cries to the heaven above. There's a stone in my heart. She lives a life she didn't choose, and it hurts like brand new shoes. Hurts like brand new shoes. There is a woman in Somalia. The sun gives her no mercy. The same sky we lay under burns her to the bone, long as afternoon shadow.
Ένα, δύο.
It's gonna take her to get home. Each grain carefully wrapped up, pearls for her little girl. She cries to the heaven above. There is a stone in my heart. She lives in a world she didn't choose. Like brand new shoes, hurts like brand new shoes.
This is away from my ear. Oh, sorry. I think.
did.
Orthopedic surgeon
He
is
won't
Dr.
stand
Smith.
away from
So when she gets hurt, she
every
goes to
doll
Dr.
like
Smith.
Joseph. To even the toughest among us, that would be too much. He didn't know what it was to be black, till they gave him his change, but didn't want to touch his hand. To even the toughest among us, don't you know that would be too much. Isn't it just enough how hard it is to live? Isn't it hard enough just to make it through a day? The secret of their fear and their suspicion, standing there looking like an angel in his brown shoes, his short suit, his white shirt, and his cuffs a little frayed, coming from where he did. He was such a dignified child.
Okay, if you could return to your seats. Last panel in a few moments' time to commence. Thank you. And off.
So you just came to Milan from you are
Excuse, sorry. Sorry. No, yes, I came. Yeah, I moved from Australia recently to Milano. Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, it's working? Yeah?
All of us.
Okay, so I have to take a seat now?
Yes, yes. There
But
should be
where's
another
your
seat up
then?
here.
So you have a moderator
And
seat.
you know what? Let me sit on this side because the camera's a little more over here. So just like Ed had it before.
So Nicole, what is your background?
So I work with Lindy at Sisu Sports Management. So Sisu Sports Management. So player representation. But up until April, I was 2 years working at Tottenham Hotspur Women. So as general manager. So I've got a kind of club background, and that's sort of the insight of really working within Women's Super League and the English FA and that sort of environment from a club perspective. Before that, I was in men's football as well, more from a sponsorship marketing sort of area.
Very
quite broad.
Managing Director of Atromitos and Vice President, Atromitos FC.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to read that. I've got that.
Oh, but I just thought I
Just want to be sure.
Yeah, just to check. I didn't.
Testing 1, 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for the public. Last round of today,
I
guys.
think we're
Unfortunately,
Sorry, Jim. After Mary, there's the video.
Okay.
You made aware of that?
Okay, fine. You're going to speak?
No. So after. Okay, we will commence the final panel for the day. If we could just take our seats, we will get underway. Marios, the venue is too beautiful. We're stuck outside and far too beautiful. Plenty more of that to come. We will get into the final panel for the day. Lessons learned from top women's teams. Jim Cooley, the moderator for this one. Jim has been active in the women's game over the last 40 years in the United States as a coach, trainer and mentor to girls in the 70s and 80s. In the 90s, when the women's game in the USA was really taking off, Jim held various roles with W League teams as a sales director, general manager and public address announcer. When the NWSL was formed, he joined Sky Blue, as we discussed last night, as their director of sales. If any man is aware of some of the lessons learned, it is you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And over to you.
Okay. On our panel today is Mary Cock-Williamson. He's the owner and the founder of the Holland Football University, as earlier. That was him. Okay, great. You also are the member of and founder of the first professional academy for both boys and girls mixed, capital mixed. for 9 to 18-year-olds in Holland.
Yes.
Okay. We also have with us Katja Koksanoglu, Vice President and Managing Director of Atromitos Football Club, right here, as well as Nicole Allison, who is the football consultant, player representative, and athlete support professional at CISU Sports Management. You earned your MS degree in sports management and football business from Birkbeck University in London. You are a player, a coach, much as all of us. We've begun that journey as player and coach. You moved into the business side in research, sponsorship, media, and marketing, and more recently served for 2 years as general manager of Tottenham Hotspur Women of the WSL. And Jim Galanis, who is the technical director for all of the state of New Jersey, all the youth soccer in New Jersey. James Galanis is the guy. He's also director of operations and president of the Universal Soccer Academy in New Jersey, which specializes in an individual player who has desires to play at the very highest level possible. And one of his students, and currently still a student, is the famous Carly Lloyd from New Jersey of fame and fortune. But we're going to begin with Mary. You've got a presentation you'd like to begin with, making a difference.
Well, I was asked to do a speech about what happened with Team Holland. So it might be a little bit technical, but it's also special for the players and coaches that are watching through streaming to learn a little bit how did we build Team Holland. So building world-class teams, I know it's a challenging world, and especially where you see where they're coming from. So if you look already at the faces, I was telling you, a lot of these players were already starting in 2007 in Eredivisie. So players of 16, 17-year-olds that you see on the picture over there, 16, 17-year-olds, they already played in the highest league in Holland, Women's League. Before that, all of these players played in a mixed team, so only with boys. So most of the players were the only girls that were playing in a boys' team. So the vision was, where are you going to start? So what is the starting point that Team Holland had to work with? I don't know if you remember the World Cup in Canada, and you remembered how Holland showed up there. It was a team that wasn't playing total football. It was a team that was playing more catenaccio, very defensive organization, and from there trying to counterattack. So you have to know what is the aiming point we're starting with and where do we want to build to, because Holland clearly wanted to be a challenger. So you have to start with your vision in 2007. It was the start of the professional league in Holland. You have to look at which strategy and which tactics and which basic principles are you going to use, and then etc. I don't go fully to the text because it's a lot of text and the TV is small. Just to give you an idea. So where are we going to start? Looking at where the team was. So in 2015, Canada, defensive organization, and we had a lot of speed. Had a right winger, she's playing also for Olympique Lyonnais at the moment, Janice van der Zanden. She was amazing. She is playing with the number 7. She was always sharp for the counterattack. So Holland played on their own half, and as soon in defense, and as soon as they won the ball, they directly found her. That was the game plan. But maybe they also want to have something different. So they have to think what was going to be their legacy. So if things are not working out like you want, so the team in 2015 wasn't happy. There wasn't a lot of joy coming from the team in the way that they played. The team felt that they were able to do more. So what is going to do when you are in a situation where you don't like it? You have 3 options. One is that you blame. You blame the coach. The coach wants to play defensive, we are a lot better. Or, you know, the games in Canada, they're played on different grass than we're used to. I think it's not a thing for players. We all do it. We have a reaction, we can blame others, we can blame events, but it can also be changing the life conditions. So the life conditions, that was something we didn't have any influence on. So those were the things that were happening for the filter, for example. So what we had to do is change our blueprint. So our blueprint, for example, with us was that in 2016, FC Twente had to get rid of the girls. And we could say, life conditions, We cannot do anything about it. It happened. Sorry, girls. That's it. Or we can change our blueprint on how we look at gender equality. So instead of blaming events, blaming the life conditions that we were facing, we decided to choose something different, changing our blueprint on how we can develop players. So if you look at that, everyone, and that's great, I read it somewhere, that we all share the 6 human needs. So that means people from Asia, from Africa, America, everyone here has the same 6 human needs. The only thing is, which 2 are most dominant for you? So everyone aims to have these 6, but each one of us are in this phase of your life are really focused on 2 of them. And it's interesting if you look at that because it explains your behavior. It explains why you want to achieve certain things. So for this Team Holland, there was something different that they didn't feel happy. And they couldn't blame the coach anymore because the coach got replaced in 2017, only half a year before the Women's Euro. So they didn't have that excuse anymore. But what they want is they wanted to have growth. They wanted to be better than only the defensive team. They saw Holland men wasn't doing that well. And they decided, we want to give contribution to the Dutch audience that we play total football. So remember Holland, men's team, the last World Cup, we were also suddenly known for counterattack. And this women's team decided that they were going to leave a legacy. Now there's a different thing. Because the coach, Sarina Wiegman, she has really progressed her career, taking small steps. But now she became the head coach. And what was happening is, if you are at the first time head coach, and you have 6 months to go before your Women's Euro, you have a choice. I can build out of certainty, meaning defensive organization, proven results, or you can decide to follow your team. How many coaches would choose certainty with their first big international coaching job? Sarina Wiegman and the team decided that they wanted to be the Women's Euro in Holland, their Women's Euro. They decided that they wanted to inspire everyone in Holland. And I think that deserves a lot of respect. A coach who doesn't play the Galacticos, Real Madrid, but the coach who plays the potentials. Why? Because the coach believes that the potentials can get better with playing. How many coaches are daring to do that? How many coaches are taking, Ed was asking me, taking the risk? You choose the Galacticos, you choose your big stars over your youngsters. But these are the coaches that make the difference, Ed. She did. So if you look at performance, we're talking as football coaches a lot about skills, skill training. So skills, it's only the capability of pursuing a skill, technical skills. But without it, it's just circus artists. I don't care if a player can juggle for 3,000 times. It's about creating the circumstance that you have skills combined with the right behavior. And if you have that, that is the way you can perform. So for Holland, they had to change their beliefs. So Holland was playing as a defensive unit, and now all of a sudden they had to inspire with playing attacking football. So some of us are also recognizing maybe some of these beliefs. Is when a young potential has to step up the plate and says, I'm not good at this. Look at this player. Look at Ronaldo. He is so much better. I'm not able to do it. But it's about giving your players the behavior that they can figure it out. Trusting them. Or women who have to show up with a lot of burden on the shoulders because they represent all women. That's happening. So I don't want to show up because I can't afford to make a mistake. When I have to say something, it has to be right. Otherwise, I shouldn't do it. But it puts a lot of pressure on you. So what if we can change that belief with our players to say, I need mistakes. Otherwise, I'm staying here. And if I want to reach here, like Ebru was saying, you have to get out of your comfort zone. To get out of your comfort zone, it means you're embracing making mistakes. Otherwise, you're not growing. I know it's scary, but we all have to. So what is the leadership of that team needing? And I think it's in all companies. So the leadership is, leaders develop leaders. So when you have a captain in your team, that you see is doing a great job, but cannot be consistent at it, why would you only have one captain? Remember the goalkeeper, Sari van Veenendaal? 1 month before the World Cup, she was not playing. She had the captain band, and she was the best FIFA goalkeeper of the World Cup. Why? Because she was already a leader, even on the bench. So one captain doesn't say anything. It's about how do you create leadership in your team in general. So what strategies do you have to build your team? We have to think about the main moments. So if we decide we want to play total football, what does it mean? So it means we have to think out of the 4 main moments of the game. Because when we are watching a game, I can tell you there are 40 people here, and everyone watches the game through different glasses. So when you talk with coaches about a game, everyone looks at something different. But how can we talk the same language? It means analyzing the game through the 4 main moments. What are we going to do as a team when we have the ball and build up? What are we going to do when we don't have the ball and have to defend? What are we going to do if we win the ball? Are we going to counter-attack? Or are we going to make the field wide and link up? What is our plan? And Caroline was saying it, I think, beautiful. I think Holland didn't have the best individual players. But in these 4 main moments, they had a plan. So if you play like Holland, they wanted to aim for playing an attractive way of football. They wanted to surprise the audience. So what did it mean for their tactical awareness? So they had to have players that were able not, when they win the ball, to think back, but players who were able to think forward. And what I see at the World Cup, that a lot of midfielders were turning backwards. It's a defensive control. And one of the best players, I believe, in the World Cup, I must say, it was an American. Lavelle. I think she's an amazing player because she knows how to make an attacking control forward. She doesn't go back. She plays and thinks forward. So you need to have players that have that. You need to have players that are able to execute. As soon as we win the ball, directly go forward instead of thinking backwards. So now I have to think about the physical skills. We were talking about sometimes in America. I'm doing a coaching clinic there, and I work with them 90 minutes. And then they say, thanks, coach, and then they rush off and say, where are you going? Oh, we have another session planned. I'm like, what? It's not about quantity. It's about quality. So if I look at how I want to play total football. What does it mean? What does it mean for my team if I want to play that way? It means physically, I have to have a right winger that is able to maybe sprint 50 yards, but as soon as we lose the ball, it means that same right winger has to sprint back also 70 yards, because that's total football. And total football, it's not what I saw in the World Cup with a lot of teams, 5 players in a defensive block and 5 players in the attacking block. And as soon as we are making steps with that, I think the women's game is growing. Marjorie from France. Oh, I would take her in a suitcase. You know, that's a player I love. I think she was a left attacking midfielder. And they played her left fullback. She is playing the total football. She is playing, creating chances in the end phase. But she is also there to defend. Beautiful player. And that's what you hope the women's game is going to look like. But Japan also. Every player of Japan can defend, can attack, and they're able to do it both. So when a player comes to me and says, coach, I need help, I need to become fitter, I first ask, in which phase do you feel like you have to be fitter? Is it because you are not able to keep a game 90 minutes? Or are you not able to recover from sprints? What is it? One thing for sure, my players are not running laps to get fitter. Why? Because I've never seen them on the World Cup, when the referee blows the whistle, running laps. So why should I train running laps? I should train them being able to execute football 90 minutes or 120 minutes in most of the games. That's what football condition is. So it starts first with us as coaches. What do we demand from our players? So Holland said, if we are going to play on the World Cup stage, we need an attacking strategy. So when I was when I was training with women, a lot of women don't like crosses. Who recognizes that? Women and training crosses. And it's so funny because then the coach says, I'm going to train crosses. I say, why? Well, they're not good at it. I said, oh, so why are they not good at it? They don't like it. So maybe they don't like it because they're not good at it. And the coach is putting it on the agenda again. How many goals are scored from a long cross, second post? Many goals in men's soccer? No. Why? Because we all have tall defenders. So how many goals are still played second post long? Not many. What do we do with women football? We practice crosses. And you know what? We put them on the right sideline and we let them give a cross second post. And they don't score and we say, we do it again. And we do it again. Or as coaches, we have to think, maybe we need to find different ways of scoring from the flanks. Maybe we have to get a left fullback in the end line. Or maybe we have to give through passes. Or maybe passes that on the back line are just played back. Why just practice one part of crosses? As a coach, we have to think of strategies of how to score. You know how Holland scored the most goals? If you look at those 8, what do you think Holland was great at? Set pieces. Unbelievable. Set pieces. Holland scored a lot of goals out of that. I'm telling you, no coincidence. Worked on those 8 strategies. How can we score the most goals out of it? So next thing is, what about the team values? So if you want to play total football, what are the team values for me? So for me, it starts with tactics, knowing how you play. The second thing is talk. So when I decide I would like to play like that, I need my players to own it. So my players need to discuss with each other how we are going to do that in the game. Team up. So against America, we got beaten in 2016. We just got killed, Jim. I'm serious. We played a friendly match and we just... And you saw the team, their body language was like heads down. You don't accept it. That's your value. Triangles. Technique, very simple. And taka. The first thing you want to do if you are working in Africa or in the Middle East or Europe and you're working with a team is you ask them, why do you think it's after trap passing or possession game, you ask them, why Barcelona calls it tiki-taka? Why do they call it tiki-taka? Who can tell me?
It's like a dance.
It's like a dance. But when I go abroad and giving trainings, it's the sound of the ball. So when players are playing a ball, I hear... But when I look at Barcelona and I listen at the ball, it's like... Tak, 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 tak. So we always say to players, play balls with the taka sound. Make it fast. So, talented players. Nature or nurtured? Is Messi, is Ronaldo by nature as good as he is? Or is it because the environment around him created him in that way? When you don't have a philosophy on it and you say, oh, it's nature, it's easy as a coach. Because you say, I don't take responsibility in building players. It's just their nature. But we forget that it's 20,000 hours they put into to get there at world stage. So believe me, a lot can be done with nurturing. So if you know your vision, how you want to play, it means what kind of players do you need. And some players might be great players, but not in the way that you want to play. So some players might have played 200 caps, but are not the players that are the right players for your system. And you need to you need to accept that and build from that and make the hard decision as a coach. Or you play your philosophy, but you need to find the players with it. Or you say, I only build it around the player. You remember her? She was scoring the most free kicks, and she had the beautiful assists. She was the defensive midfielder of Holland. Sherida Spitze. You know, the thing is, how do you look at a defensive midfielder? Who believes a defensive midfielder needs to be strong, good in tackling? Be honest. You guys all total football? Yeah. So she was not fast. She was not running to win a lot of balls. But she won the most balls. Why? Because positionally she was great. She looked at the game and she knew when the ball was coming over her, she knew how to close it to the defense. This player scored more goals or created more goals than any other attacker. So all of a sudden, as a coach, you think, I cannot play her because she's defensively not strong. And the Dutch people were saying that in the newspapers. You have to get her out. She's too slow. She's too old. She cannot run fast enough. She's no Frankie de Jong. That's what we say in Holland. And after 3 games, because she makes results for your team. So as a coach, what she did? She made her the number 10, but then at 6. And she had the 2 attacking midfielders run a lot for her. So Holland became champions in 2017, had to rethink now what in 2019, because that's the World Cup stage. It's something different. So when, as a coach, you're going to start, it's about analyzing what you have seen and how you want to develop it. But then a player. So when I do a training, I have a plan. But when my players are showing up, it's not like, tell me, coach, what are we going to do today? I want my players to have a level of commitment on our training. I want my players to have a level of being accountable for what they're going to grow. My players need to know what they're going to develop that training. It's not me saying to them what you're going to develop. It's about you as a player. What do you have under control to become better today? Or do you leave it to the coach? It's easy. The coach is not teaching me anything. No, it's about you, taking responsibility for what your learning process is. And then as a coach, you know the coaches that say my players are not motivated. You know the teachers that say this class, they don't listen. Forget about them. I don't believe kids are not motivated. Not in class, not on the field. I think 90 times out of 100, it's about the coach or the teacher. That one isn't prepared about the situation, about the signals, about how to inspire my players to become the best selves. Don't make it too easy to put the blame with the players that are not motivated. Look in the mirror. What did you do wrong? So sometimes I had an exercise and I made the distance really big, but then there was no intensity. So I can say the players, they're not intense. No, the distances were too big. Or the coach after the game says, my players didn't win any duels. You know why? Because the coach chose the wrong tactics. And the distances were so big that your players weren't able to get in a duel. That would be great if a coach says that. Yeah? You know, I messed up as a coach. They didn't win duels because it was my fault. I didn't choose the right strategy. The lines were too big. No. I don't know. My players, they don't listen. They don't get into duel. And I just told them before, win the duels. And they don't do it. They don't do it. Take responsibility. So it's the climate. What kind of training climate are you going to put for them to grow? These were the golden three at the Women's Euro. These were the front strikers. They were amazing. So Janice van der Zende, the right winger, very fast. Lieke Martens, who got chosen to be FIFA Player of the Year, played for Barcelona. And Vivianne Miedema, only 21 years old yet. They were the stars at the Women's Euro. What happened on the World Cup? Only one player really hit her level. That was the striker. Question, what is it? Is it pressure? Were they not able to deal with the pressure? Or is that the maximum that those two wingers had? So as a coach, don't make it easy to say, I'm only training skills. As players, don't only focus on developing your skills. You first have to choose how you want to become and show up in the field and outside the field. So I think Holland was doing great in that. And I think I like the saying of Muhammad Ali. And I would say it to a lot of the female players now out here. Muhammad Ali, you know him? Yeah, I don't know, generation maybe, but YouTube. Muhammad Ali already told the world that he was the greatest. He was not. He was not there yet. He was a rookie. And everyone was laughing. How can you say it? You're the greatest. You're just coming up. But his words became his beliefs. Sari van Veenendaal, 1 month before the World Cup, she didn't know she was playing yet. She was the second goalkeeper. I sent her a text message saying, Sari, you are not a good number 2. You're going to be the best number 1 of the world. I saved that message because Sari had made a decision early on. Whatever happens, I'm going to be the leader on and off the field. She chose it. She did it. So my tip for you guys, find a group of people around you where you spend a lot of time with. Because this group of people, your teammates, your coaches, you spend a lot of time with, they will help you grow. It's not about money only. It's about resources, also about creating the network. So find players around you that are going to support you in your dreams. Find friends around you that don't say, come on, let's go tonight. You have a game tomorrow, 1 beer. Find people who believe in you to be the best. Because those are the people that you want to spend your time with becoming the best. Okay? Wish you lots of luck, players in Greece, and hopefully Holland-Greece will be the next game in the final of the Women's Euro ones. Or France. Italy! Italy also!
Thank you, Mary. We'll just grab the... You okay? You have the clicker?
Oh, clicker, yeah.
Thank you. Funny you mentioned Sari. She did actually win the FIFA Best Women's Goalkeeper of the Year recently.
Yeah.
She did win the award, so sensational. We just have, before the panel does get underway, a very quick video message from an attendee who was unable to attend, Arne Gretarsson, who is a former director at AEK and Club Brugge. We have sound.
I cannot participate in this wonderful and so necessary conference on the position of women in the football world. I am, however, very positive that this conference will help to push for more progress for women in every aspect of the football industry. I really hope you will enjoy the conference, at the same time the beautiful city of Athens and the hospitality of the wonderful people of Athens. Thank you. Yassas.
Katja, and learn more about the Atromitos Football Club right here. Is this for you?
Okay. Thank you. Let me see some words for our history. Okay. Sorry. It's a video. Okay.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
This is a video from Women's Day. Okay, let me tell you some words for the history of women's football team. The history of our women's football team began in autumn 2007, when it became clear the need of our society to provide space to women as well to play football in Greece. Atromitos was among the first team between the big clubs of Greek football which made it come true. In the beginning, we gathered players of age between 12 and 16 years old, and most of them were young. New women players without big experience, but with much love for football, were integrated step by step to our team. The women's team of Atromitos during the first years was training, participating at football tournaments hosted by Peristeri municipality, and playing friendly games against men and women opponents with the aim of the best preparation to an official championship. In 2008, Atromitos women team participated at the regional championship. We ended at the second position, which gave us the chance to play playoff games for promoting to the first league. Unfortunately, we lost this game with 1-0 against Hellas Podium. This failure made the whole women's football club of Atromitos more stubborn. And as a result, through hard effort, we managed in 2009 for the first time to be promoted to the first league. Nevertheless, the team was relegated at the end of the season because we were not 100% ready. Our second promotion to the first league came during the season 2011-2012. This particular season was crucial for Atromitos women's team due to the fact that from one hand, we secured easily staying at the first league, and on the other hand, we decided to organize football academies for young girls. Until today, 50 girls between 6 and 17 years old participate in our women football academies. From 2012 and onwards, Atromitos Women Football Club has a steady and continuous road to the First League Championship, which is hosted by the Greek Football Federation. What is more, Atromitos Women Football Club is rapidly evolving and making big steps of progress. We are deeply happy because players for Atromitos women's team participate in Greek national team of all ages, like national women's team, even national women's team under 19. At this point, I would like to be referred to some players like Gatoudi, Kaldi, Giannakouli, Vlasopoulou, Katsianou, Kriezi, Georgopoulou, and Papatheodoru. At the same time, a second team named Youth Team Atromitos was founded at 2019. Its mission was to support our academy's vision. Girls of young age participate in that team who make progress through participating to games with the target of being promoted to the big women's team. Our team, Youth Team Atromitos, celebrate for the first year of its foundation the championship of third league, and now is at the second league. After 12 years of Atromitos women football team presence, we are very proud of our achievements. We take into account that we have crossed only the halfway. We continue without derivation for our division and philosophy on which we focus from the beginning the primary goal of achieving a steady progress and maintaining a family environment with respect to the fans. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. And congratulations on, am I good here?
Thank you.
So, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to, sorry. Αυτό, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I would like to speak about the facilities that we offer to the women, our team, because we believe that in order to develop a team, we have to offer high-quality facilities. For this reason, we offer them the same facilities that we offer to the men team, we offer also to the women team.
Same.
Same.
Okay.
So they training to our fitness center. They have also physiotherapists for the girls. We have spa center for them. And they have an equal treatment like men.
Okay, that's just those last slides, an equal treatment. Okay, when we talk about equality, we talk about equal opportunity and equal treatment. That's wonderful. Now, your academy program began some 10 years ago. Is that what we're hearing, give or take? And how many females are participating in the Atromitos Academy overall in your club?
We have 23 women, and we have 50 girls in our academies.
Overall 50 girls.
Yes.
And from those 50 girls, I'm hearing a half a dozen are on the Greek national team. Is that?
We have 50 girls in our academies from the age 6 to 70 years old, and 23...
And from your academy, now you have how many?
Our vision is our academies, from the academies girls to go to promote it to the women team. This is our vision, to develop women players.
Okay. How are you funded? Is the federation pay for this? Private funding? Do you get sponsorships?
The truth is that in Greece it's a little bit difficult to develop academies because it's not financially supported. So our team, the men team, support the women team financially.
Okay. So the men's program, a percentage of their budget to support the women.
Yes, we support them for their trips, for the accommodation, for the transfers, transportations. We offer them facilities.
Okay.
And as I know, some little budget from a Greek federation, but you can have high-quality facilities with so little support.
All right, good. That's a good. This is a setup, by the way, because we're going to talk more about UK and the United States and how we might compare and contrast our academy systems. And thank you, Mary. That was a great presentation before and gave us some really good insight as to what Holland has been doing. So, Nicole, give us some insight into the academy system in UK, your experiences with Hotspur, and maybe some reflections on what Katya said as well.
Yeah, so in England, you can kind of look at it from two angles. You've obviously got the grassroots side of things as well, which we've touched upon through Rupinder talking about the Wildcats scheme that they have, which is essentially, fun. It's sort of for development. But if I focus on the performance side and the sort of talent pathway in England, clubs will have something called RTCs, which stands for Regional Talent Centres. So every club that is in the Women's Super League will have a regional talent centre. This is from sort of under 10s up to under 16s. This is partly funded by the FA and then also partly funded by the club.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of joint approach in that respect. There are certain standards and criteria that the club will have to meet to be able to be given a RTC licence. So coaching standards, facility standards, and things like that. And historically, when you hit the kind of age of 16, so back when I was playing 10, 15 years ago, you then just went into adult women's football. There was no other pathway. It was just straight in. 16, you're then playing with adult women in those leagues. So what we needed to create, and what the FA have done very well in doing over the past few years, is creating something that is actually called the WSL Academies, and that started for the first time last season. So in the WSL we have 12 teams, and those teams will have to have a WSL Academy, which is from the age of 16 and above. And what that has is a dual career approach. So they work together with something called TAS, which is Talented Athletes Scholarship Scheme.
and that's a delivery partner to actually provide dual career support to those players that are in, for example, the Arsenal WSL Academy. So if you're an Arsenal player at the age of sort of 16, you're in a dual career program where you'll be positioned at university, maybe doing apprenticeships or degrees or whatever you're doing. And the FA are supporting that through TAS as well to be given strength and conditioning support, lifestyle support, nutritionist support, whilst you're also training for the club that you're with. So that's something that started last year. We'll obviously need to do some research in the next kind of 2 to 3 years to see how well that has been successful.
That support from the FA sounds amazing.
Yeah.
The financial support goes with that, with these mandates?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, the FA will fund a club that will put that in, but also the club will then have to also give the same amount of funding as well. So there are different tiers of RTCs, tiers 3, 2 and 1, and depending on which tier you are, the funding will need to be dependent on that. I think looking back, and the reason why the FA, obviously, when they decided they wanted to really put women's football at the forefront, is at the ages of 16, as I said, you either went into adult women's football, and for those best players, they would be going off and getting scholarships in the US mainly. So England were losing the best talent.
School scholarships, college scholarships in the US.
Absolutely.
Not available or as plentiful in the UK?
Not at the time. It's starting to grow, and that's a model that I think we need to look at, and the FA needs to do more in terms of providing these scholarships in England as well. But through the partnership with TAS, this is a kind of hybrid opportunity at the moment. But a club that I think it's quite important to mention as well, the kind of continuum that we have in England about the clubs and the organisational structure, because we probably assume that a lot of the clubs and the best clubs are just associated to the men's team, and they are as one, such as your Manchester Cities, Arsenal's, Chelsea's, but there are also some really successful clubs that are independent and not associated to the men's teams. And they have models whereby they are more partnered with universities. So their offering is, instead of, I think Lindy touched upon this in the player representation panel, the offering is essentially that players can come to the university, they are given accommodation, they're given full educational support, whilst also playing top-level football.
Modeled similar to our scholarships in the US.
Yeah.
If you're listening to these, to the frameworks here, and if you are desiring to find out how did a nation or does a nation do this, how do they get to the top of the table, how do they become a world power, it's us at these local levels, working academies, doing what we can, being poor, making a difference until one day we're not so poor. Now, I mention that only in that I felt after the 2015 World Cup in Canada that there was a tidal shift of perception of these women in England. Because Kelly Smith played for us. Okay, Kelly Smith was on scholarship, a great player from England, at the Seton Hall University in New Jersey. And we spent years trying to get her to play for our Wildcats. And I'm wondering where the Wildcats came from with you. So this is kind of strange. But in any event, Kelly got a full scholarship at Seton Hall. She was the best player in the country, no doubt. Did not win the Herman Award, which is our top level in the United States for the best female and male soccer players in college. Then she came to play for the Wildcats and came back to England. We saw her. She was a great commentator for the World Cup. But the opportunities for girls to play in England, they're not suffering so much when they decide to be a footballer. And what happened after 2015? Can you give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it was a watershed moment in England. So the WSL started in 2011, so more funding was starting to go in at that point, but it was still really under the radar in terms of marketing and support. But 2015, I think, really kind of just opened everybody's eyes, and it kind of started to move us from the back shelf to the front shelf. It wasn't there yet at all, and we've had to work hard from that moment and kind of jump on some of the really positives from that, including sponsorships, including partnerships with different clubs, with universities, with other education institutions to try and really get on board. And then what we've seen with the World Cup in 2019 is another shift as well. So I think with all of that, we keep stepping forward.
And I think that to kind of jump on the point that we made earlier about building the framework and infrastructure underneath is absolutely critical, because you, as much as we all want to progress really, really quickly, you also need to build the infrastructure that's underneath to make sure you don't just suddenly fall off a cliff when things get bad.
All right, wonderful. Does gender play as large a role in either opportunity or roadblocks that you may have had in the past? Is it less of an issue? Because I'm just sensing right now the British people are agog over their performance, and they want more of it. And the fact that they're female is meaningless. They just want more of this.
I think it's getting better, but I wouldn't say that it's completely irrelevant.
Maybe I'm just the optimist. Let's do a little shift here. We'll talk to James Galanis from New Jersey. He has his own Universal Development Academy in New Jersey. The academy system in the United States is comprehensive. It's competitive. There's different levels. There's U.S. soccer sanctioned development academies, and there are local academies, and there are a lot of young people playing. There's competition for great players. There's competition for great parents, meaning it costs a lot of money in the United States to get into and succeed in these academies. So James, give us some of your background and some of your experiences.
Yeah, so I live in New Jersey, but actually my background is Greek. My parents migrated from Greece to Australia. I grew up in Australia, and then at 27 years old, I moved to the US. And while I was there,